All right, looks like we are up and running. So now we're back into open session. There was no action taken in closed session. So we will proceed and go into the settlement litigation of Chase Beverly and versus Tom Klein et al. And so can I get a motion and a second to put it on the floor? Ms. Crosby, second by Mr. Hoffman. Can I see a hand? Yes, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Thompson and Mr. Lawson and whoever the parties are to speak on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to State's Attorney of Korea.
Actually will be Mr. Lawson who will be explaining the case.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
So this matter was a matter that started in Will County. There was an appeal filed by an attorney there that dealt with cases that were dismissed for want of prosecution. So over the years, when a case was dismissed for want of prosecution and someone would come back and file a motion to vacate that dismissal, we were charging a fee of either $50 or $75. That's because in prior legislation that we have received, dismissals were considered to be final judgments. Out of this appeal, it came that a dismissal for want of prosecution was not a final judgment. And so it should be treated differently, that we should not have been charging a fee at the time. So this is a practice that I started here in '97. We've been doing it since then, based on prior recommendations and legislation that we had received. So, for example, in Will County had to pay back approximately $300,000. DuPage County somewhere north of over $150,000. We are the smallest of the counties that we have heard of so far at $14,075. So myself and my staff put together a list. We went through 5 years of cases to come up with the cases in which we had this situation. When we first got wind of what was taking place or what was filed in Will County, we immediately stopped, just knowing that if they had won this case, we had a liability probably coming our direction. This same firm has gone after every clerk's office here in the Northeast, where a majority of these cases are filed. And so we have been working with the Attorney General on this case for about 2 years now, a little more than 2 years, and decided on settling for the $14,075. It will require some work on our part as far as mailings and distribution of checks. At the end of the process, whatever money would be needed to be sent back will come from clerk op and admin fund.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Lawson on this? All right, seeing none. We have a motion and a second on the floor to on the settlement litigation. So I'm gonna, if there are no questions or comments, obviously, the 14,000 will have to be repaid back. That's what's the settlement on this. So I will take roll call and vote on this now. So Mr. Butita?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Arena?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
And Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lawson, for the explanation.
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
Good night. Our next item is a resolution authorizing settlement claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Alex Hughes versus Winnebago County. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Motion by Mr. Hoffman, second by Ms. Crosby. Discussion on this, any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call on the resolution authorizing entitled Alex Hughes versus the Winnebago County. Mr. Butita?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Arena,
Yes.
and Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
All right, motion carries unanimously there. Our next item is a resolution authorizing settlement claim against the County of Winnebago entitled Kenneth Frickson versus Winnebago County. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Mr. Hoffman with the motion and a second by Mr. Butita. Thank you very much. Discussion on this or questions? See none. We'll take a roll call on this. Mr. Butita.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Next item is we have a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022 budget policy. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Crosby and Mr. Butita the second. Thank you very much. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Richter to kind of walk us through the information and we'll get on it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's been a very long and busy night. I'll try to be very succinct and to the point. Annually, when we begin the budget process, we do a review of the budget policy, and we bring that forth in front of the Finance Committee for your review and approval, and then eventually on to the board. The process in Winnebago for making an adjustment of this nature involves the process of redlining. In other words, we go through the report, redline what has been changed, put the new verbiage in. Because there were so many significant changes involved with this, an easier process we did was to have the new document as Exhibit A, the old documents Exhibit C, and Exhibit B is really a highlight of the professed changes. And I'll quickly go through these, and then if you have any questions, be more than happy to answer them. So, going through very quickly, item number one, we changed the appearance and format of the resolution. We wanted to make it more readable. We chose a font that was easier on the eyes, easier for a number of people, especially if you've got a vision problem. It's a lot easier to read than the old one. The term number two, CAFR, has been removed in all reference from the document. This is due to a pending change in GASB and GFOA standards. Apparently, the term CAFR in certain ethnic backgrounds and areas of the world is an offensive term. So we were directed to remove that. It's going to be a requirement going forward, according to the GFOA and GASB. So we proactively removed it ahead of the schedule to do so. The budget calendar was revised significantly in format. Essentially, there are more steps in the process, more opportunity for input from the county board and from the finance committee, and just a clear step-by-step guide on how we're going to go through the budget process. So that was quite an undertaking, and I think we arrived with a very good budget calendar and schedule with which to go off of. The fourth item, which was something I'm very proud of, we worked very diligently with Sue Gorel, our county treasurer. Normally in years past, the investment policy was just referenced by item and statute. We now include the full investment policy of the county and with the budget guidelines, which is normal from where I came from, that would be part of the process. So it was a good collaborative effort between the finance department and the treasurer's office, and including that document and with this document. And that's the way we would like to carry forward with that process. Item number 5, we made an adjustment with, I'm sorry, was there a question? I thought I heard a voice, I'm sorry. Item number 5 was a rewrite of the requests as far as who would be held responsible for budget items. Essentially, it directs departments, especially departments with contracts, they are held to the same standard as every other department as far as the budgetary process. Item number 6, we included additional line of priority. As we know earlier this year, in talking with our bond counsel and with the rating service, our bond rating was lowered because in part our failure to maintain a reserve requirement in the general fund and the public safety sales tax fund. So we put that on as a budgetary item. That's something we think is important. It should be a goal of our budgetary process to restore that 25% necessary to maintain that high credit rating for the county. Item number 7, it basically references what the departments and elected officials will do in reference to the capital project and information that they'll produce. Because we've done a capital plan and project already this year, that essentially wasn't really a requirement we need this year and did make that a requirement of the budget policy since they've already completed that process, and we'll incorporate that into the budget. Item number 8, which I found rather interesting, was a reference that said, if you're an elected official and you choose not to follow the budget process, please advise us. And I felt that that was not a phrase I wanted to see in the budget policy. In essence, I think we should hold every department head and elected official to their budget as a matter of policy. So that was removed. Item number 8, essentially this was to clarify the language. Essentially you had 2 paragraphs that said the same thing. We boiled it down to 1 for clarity of language and to remove the redundancy. And item number 10, we added additional language to give flexibility to the CFO and to the administrator to make budget adjustments before the board takes its final vote on it. So in that last month, while we're compiling our last minute information, if a change is necessary, we would be required to notice both the clerk, put that change revision on the website, and then present it to the county board for your eventual approval. We only put that in there to provide additional flexibility if necessary in the process. It just makes the process easier. The board will still approve any budget that is recommended by the administrator and is worked on by the CFO. So in essence, those are the changes that have been suggested and recommended and for your consideration. And I'd be happy to answer questions at this time.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 questions. The term comprehensive annual financial report is offensive?
The term
Or
CAFR.
The acronym is offensive.
The acronym is offensive in South Africa. It's a derogatory term for various people in South Africa.
I understand. My other question is, I wasn't on finance last year, so this may be a stupid question, but does the finance committee vote on approving the budget before it goes to the full board for approval?
That's part of the process too. You have a number of steps in there involved in the finance committee with the budget process, both at the departmental level and the full budget level. So if you look at the budget calendar, that goes step by step through what committee it will show up at, what approval will take place. So you have, if not anything, you have probably more input into that process because there are more steps in the approval process.
So number 10, explain to me how this works. It's not going to circumvent the finance committee, right? If you make a change, it has to come back to this committee for approval.
Essentially what number 10 does is that once the budget's laid over, if we have additional information with which we need to make a change, we have the ability to have that flexibility if necessary. But that's between the process between when it's being held over for final vote. So in that last month before the budget happens, if we have a union contract we have to deal with or a significant financial change, it allows us that flexibility to make that change before the board finally votes on it. But the whole board is going to vote on the final committee. So I guess indirectly it would somewhat circumvent that authority, but those are the circumstances with which we would use that discretion. If there's a significant financial change that we have to account for and make an adjustment for, it gives us that flexibility to do so rather than delaying the budgetary process.
To amend it by the board? There'd have to be a motion on the floor to amend it?
That would give authority to the CFO and the administrator to make those changes, but the final vote on the budget would still rest with the county board.
But the change itself has to be approved by the board. If the board rejects the change, it doesn't go into the final budget, correct?
The opportunity to reject the change would happen at the final vote. So
So
if
it's either we
we
reject the
recommend a
whole budget-
change, what's that?
We're either rejecting the entire budget at that point, not just the change.
With the final vote, the board can make whatever decisions and changes they want to the budget process. Like I said, though I gave you asked for a scenario with which that would be done. That would be the scenario. If there were a significant contractual change that took place, that would give us the flexibility to incorporate that into the process. Otherwise, we have to jump back to square one, bring that through committee, give testimony, get vote on that at the subcommittee level, bring it back to the board. It just allows us at the last minute, if there's a necessity for making that change, to make that change. And just so you know, we would have to notice that both with the clerk's office and at the on our website. Any revision we would make would have to be noticed and published and would be publicly available for anyone to look at. So
Okay.
it requires a certain amount of trust with the board that we're not going to go and make completely contrary changes or go in a different direction than the will and consent of the county board. This just allows us the flexibility to make necessary administrative changes if we're required to do so.
Right, I understand. This change survives all of us. So it's not just about us trusting each other. It's about putting a system in place that functions with different people in place. But if I understood you correctly, the board still would have ultimate control to reject whatever change was made on the floor with whatever motions we could make, right?
Absolutely. And they would be segregated. So you would see each change. You could say, we accept the budget in this format, but these following revisions we're not going to accept in the budget process.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation.
All right. Any other questions? Pretty straightforward. Thank you, Mr. Richter, on that.
Thank you.
We're going to take a vote on this. So I'm going to do a roll call. If there are no questions or comments, we'll take a roll call now. Mr. Butita?
Yes.
I'm a yes on adopting it. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Arena?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
And Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
So we have one no and the rest are yeses. So the motion carries. So let's move on to our next item, which are the two items, the resolutions for Senate Bill 1721 and Senate Bill 2278. I will hand it over to Mr. Arena to kind of talk a little bit about it. And then once we decide whether we're in support and opposition, we can make those resolutions or those motions at that time.
Okay, well, I'll, should we do one at a time then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right. The first one on the agenda is Senate Bill 1721. I've talked to staff a little bit about this, got a little bit more information. I think I left this at the last meeting. My personal opinion was that this wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The one thing I spoke with Ms. Vaughn about the question I asked about the county or the land bank using the county's authority to declare properties abandoned. She said that this language would give them the power to go to court as the county and to have property declared abandoned and granted to the land bank. That would be problematic for me if it were to pass, but it could be addressed by us removing that power from the land bank, so we would have control over that. But the information I got, I think that was that really changed my mind about this is by lowering the interest rate that people make on the tax by buying taxes, we drive more properties into the program. And it was pointed out to me that the valuable properties, the good ones, the interest rates on those get bid down low to a point or two. It's the properties that are in severe disrepair that are out there at 18% that people are willing to speculate on. So we would end up with more properties that need the most work. And I don't think that's a place we want to go. I just don't think that we can afford to manage and maintain more property. So for that reason, it's my recommendation that we adopt the resolution to oppose this bill. The other thing that everyone needs to keep in mind here is I think these types of things should be done with the county board's involvement early on. So we're coming into the legislative session with a bill that we approve of. At this point in the session, it's hard for us to negotiate as a governmental entity because of how our process works. The legislature is going to come back in the middle of April, and then they're only in for 6 weeks after that. So all of this stuff, if it's going to become law, would happen in those 6 weeks. So we wouldn't really have much of an opportunity to go with the back and forth. So that's another reason that I think we're exposed on these things if we were to vote to approve them. So it's my recommendation that we adopt the resolution to oppose.
Ms. Crosby?
I'm going to speak against that, and I'll tell you why. I think R1 has done an exceptional job on the trustee program as well as the land bank. Taxing bodies are getting revenue they never saw before. We've opened up the bidding process to thousands versus a couple hundred. I think they're doing an absolutely exceptional job, and I'm not concerned about them having the revenue to sustain the program. What I am concerned about is I don't know if this has been assigned to a committee. As of 2 weeks ago, it wasn't. Last Friday was the deadline. And do we know if this has been assigned to a committee? I don't think we do. And if it hasn't been assigned, I don't know why we're talking about it, because it's going nowhere to begin with. So I'm not going to support your recommendation, Paul. I think R1 has done a beautiful job on the trustee program and the land bank. And until we really understand if it's even being sent to a committee, I'm not sure we have to vote on it at all. So, and I'm going to make a motion to support the House Bill, what is it, 1721, and I so move.
All right, before that, let's get Mr. Richter. I think he,
I just want to clarify, I do have it up on the Illinois General Assembly website. It's been assigned to the Revenue Committee on March 25th.
Okay, so I'm positioned the same. I still move that we support 1721 as presented by Mr. Stadelman. And that's my motion. So I appreciate a second.
can I get a second? Okay, Mr. Butita. Discussion. Ms. Serena, any other comments? Mr. Butita? First, I'll go to Ms. Serena, then Mr. Butita.
No, I guess I have no further comments. I still think that it's in our best interest to oppose this. This legislation could be worked on and, passed at a later date. It doesn't have to happen right now. Anything like this, I think, should happen with more involvement of the county, especially since it's our program that's being changed. So I still believe, and I would ask for a no vote on this motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Butita.
So, I'm kind of a little indifferent about the whole resolution, whether it's going to make much of an impact on us. It seems that this is geared probably more for other counties than us. So, I'm going to support Jean's position. I agree with her that the land bank's been doing our one has done a good job of the trustee program, and that's what this mostly looks at. So, I'm going to go ahead and vote yes, but that's where I stand, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Butita. Anyone else? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Arena.
I just want to point out it's really not an issue of whether R1 has done a good job or bad job. This just applies to the program in general. And the point that whether it's R1 or any agent in the world, it's going to reduce revenue in the program, right? So we would have less penalty interest to utilize in the program, and we'd have more property that we'd have to distribute less money to. So it's just for that reason. It has nothing to do with the land bank's results on what they've done, or the R1. Actually, it's not the land bank, it's R1 as the trustee. This bill has nothing to do with the land bank at all. So I just want that to be clear to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arena. Ms. Crosby?
Paul's correct. It has nothing to do with the land bank, but it has everything to do with the trustee program. We're taking the maximum penalty from 18% to 12%. That's a huge difference for those individuals that have faced employment problems and now face a problem of losing their home. It gives a redemption period from every 6 months to 12 months. So this is a compassionate, thoughtful resolution coming forward. And I can't understand, in all honesty, guys, why we can't support it for all those homeowners out there that are on the bubble and who are at risk. And these are people that put down payments, some maybe just 5%, some 20%, but they've got their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and they faced employment issues, they faced COVID, now they're facing possible losing their home, and I cannot support anything that would promote that. So I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and, so the current is in support of Senate Bill 1721, Ms. Crosby, is that correct? I don't have it.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. You got it.
That's on the floor, so we'll take a vote. This is in support of it. A yes would support it. Obviously, a no would shoot it down. So we'll start with Mr. Butita.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Salgado, I'm a yes. Ms. Crosby.
Yes.
Mr. Arena.
No.
Mr. McDonald.
No.
And Mr. Schultz.
No.
All right, so we have 3 no's and 4 yeses. The motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Moving on to our next item, which I'll hand it over to Mr. Arena to kind of give us his position or whatever on the resolution for Senate Bills 2278.
Okay, so this one, I talked to Mr. Neighbors. He said that this was not not something that was generated from the Mental Health Board. He said they were unfamiliar with it as well. He said there was some confusion among them about what it would really do, and that initially they were opposed to it. I spoke with Ms. Vaughn about it, and as it's written, it doesn't really have any effect. I think that the issue here was, I think the intended goal was that we operate as if it's a 708 board. And we adopted the Mental Health Board under that same section of law. But we did it in a way that made it unclear. So they didn't specify exactly that we were going to adopt all the other aspects of that section of law. And I asked Ms. Vaughn if a non-home rule unit of government could selectively enact one part of state statute without doing the rest. And she acknowledged that that's a good question, that it was just unclear. So we can, what I talked with Mr. Neighbors about is, rather than doing this, let's just have a resolution here at the board level to clarify what we didn't do well when we established the Mental Health Board, and add that language that says we adopt all those sections of state law. And, you know, in talking to some other folks just involved with the legislative process, if, you know, once this goes down there and gets, you know, into that process, then it could get changed in ways that we no longer have any influence over. So here again, I'm recommending that we adopt the resolution to oppose it.
Okay. So we have a motion, I treat that as a motion for,
Yeah, you could treat that as a motion.
so we have a motion in approval of opposing the legislation, Senate Bill, I want to say, what was it, 2278? So
Yes.
can I get a second, please? No, okay, second by?
Second.
Second by Mr. Schultz. All right, discussion, Ms. Crosby?
I support Paul Arena's position and Steve Schultz. I did talk to the sheriff about this, and he's in opposition with it as well. So I support the motion as it's stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? All right, see none, we'll take a roll call here. This is a resolution in opposition to Senate Bill 2278. And this is regarding to the mental health piece language that's in there. So I'm going to go to Mr. Butita.
So yes, opposes it, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Ms. Crosby,
Yes,
Mr. Arena,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. It passes unanimously for opposition to that Senate bill. Thank you very much. We will move on to our next item, which is, are there any other matters to come before this committee? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn, please? By Mr. Hoffman, Ms. Crosby, and Mr. Butita. Thank you very much. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much,
Good night.
everyone, for being patient with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
It's bedtime.
thank you very much.